Well, what if there is no tomorrow? There wasn't one today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 87 of Movies Are Awesome, the show all about fantasy sports. My name is Nathan Pottle, and thank you so much for joining me today. I am glad to be sitting down and doing a review. I was supposed to work another big bout of overtime this week, but I took an extra day off just because I needed a little bit of a break and just needed to rest a little bit. Working 60 hours is crazy, so here I am, sitting down, talking about movies, and a lot has happened since the last couple of weeks since I've done an episode. Mainly is that the podcast has crossed 5,000 downloads, so that's awesome. Pretty cool. Thank you, everyone who listens to the show. I really appreciate that. Let's just keep the momentum rolling forward. It's a bit of a milestone, and I'm looking forward to all the subsequent milestones that we're going to hit in the future. Another bunch of crazy stuff that happened. Warner Brothers was talking about moving all of their movies to HBO Max, and directors are mad, and moviegoers are mad. But movies theaters aren't even open in my town anyway. We just had a bunch of new COVID restrictions, so all the theaters are closed once again, and so I'm not going to be able to get to watch these movies because HBO Max isn't available in Canada, but now they're saying there are going to be avenues that I can watch Wonder Woman in and all these other stuff when it comes out. So I'm really hoping that I get to be able to watch Wonder Woman during my Christmas break, and then I can do a review for it for you guys here on the channel. I'm going to get to watch Soul on Christmas because now I'm just going to be staying at home with my wife. It'll be just the two of us, so we're going to need something to do. So Soul will be out. I'll get to watch that. And then speaking of Disney, they released a ton of new information and release dates. They had a shareholder meeting, and within that they announced a bunch of new Star Wars shows and movies. They announced a bunch of Marvel stuff. They announced some Pixar stuff. They announced some of their animation stuff. A whole big plan just piled on, just news after news after news, and trailer and sizzle reel and all these different things. It's enough stuff that I could sit down and talk about it as its own episode, but I really don't really like doing news type stuff. I just like to briefly mention them as they come up, but this is not really a news show. It's more about the celebration of how great movies are as opposed to a news segment. So I'm not talking about that today. What I am talking about is my favorite Christmas movie, and that is A Christmas Story. Now, this has been my favorite Christmas movie for a really long time, for many, many years. I love this movie so much, and last year I did an episode of what to watch at Christmas, and this was on the list, and now I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into the movie itself. I'm going to talk about spoilers and plot points throughout the whole thing, so if you have not seen A Christmas Story and you don't want to know what happens, probably best to stay away from this episode until you have seen it. But if you don't care, let's have a conversation about A Christmas Story. Now, this movie was directed by Bob Clark and was released in, I did not write down the release year. I want to say 1983, but I'm going to quickly look it up right now. I got my phone with me. A Christmas Story, 1983. Hey, I was right. How about that? Good for me. So it was released in 1983, directed by Bob Clark, and this is based off of the writings of Gene Shepard, who also does the narration throughout the film. Now, Gene Shepard was a famous radio personality in the 70s and 80s, and he mostly liked to talk about his upbringing and his childhood and all of these funny stories that came through it, and he basically just gave stories about his life. Now, in Canada, we had someone who is similar to that by the name of Stuart McLean, and he was a radio personality, but he told fictional stories as opposed to Gene Shepard, who liked to tell things about his actual life. And interestingly enough, I found out yesterday that Gene Shepard also does the voice for the main character in the Carousel of Progress at Disney World. So if you've been to Disney World and sat on the Carousel of Progress, the dad is voiced by Gene Shepard, who also does the narration for A Christmas Story. And that was a fun connection that my wife pointed out, and now it's a fun piece of trivia that I'm sharing with you. So Gene Shepard is kind of the brainchild behind all of this stuff going on in this movie. And the main story thread is that this little boy, Ralphie, wants a Red Ryder BB gun for Christmas, and he is just desperate to get this gun so that he can protect his family and just live out his childhood fantasies of being this hero who has this Red Ryder double pump action BB gun. There's this whole string to the title, and this kid rattles off what the BB gun is. All I wrote down was Red Ryder BB gun in my notes here because I couldn't remember exactly what he said of the entire title of this gun. But it's just this little BB gun that he wants for Christmas, and that's the gist of the whole story. But like in real life, we don't just have one thing going on. There's a lot of things going on. So there's actually a lot of things happening in this movie. There's stuff going on with him at school. There's stuff going on with his parents. And it's a lot like the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, where it's a lot of just little things that are strung together by this one continuous thread. And there is our movie. It's only an hour and a half long. It's a very quick watch, but it is absolutely worth it. And it's worth it for a bunch of different reasons. And I'm going to go through those reasons here. First off, Peter Billingsley, who plays Ralphie as a child, is absolutely delightful. I often really struggle with child actors. I do struggle with the actor who plays Ralphie's younger brother, Randy. I don't think he's very good in this movie. He's one of my negatives that I have to say. But Peter Billingsley, I think, is quite good. He's not in a whole lot else. He shows up in things here and there. He's in the Christmas movie Elf. He is also in Iron Man as well as Spider-Man Far From Home. But here in A Christmas Story, he plays Ralphie, our main character. He's just this imaginative little boy, and he loves to daydream. And there are these daydream sequences throughout the film. There's 3 or 4 of them where he is just imagining what his life would be like based off of the things that are happening in his life. And the first one that we get is him imagining what his life would be like if he had his Red Ryder BB gun. And in this little scenario that he's concocted, his parents and his brother are hiding underneath the table, and bandits are coming in through the backyard, and he goes, I'm gonna stop these bandits. And he goes through, and he has chewing tobacco that he's spitting out, and he's this cowboy, and he's picking off all the bandits in his backyard, and they have little crosses on their eyes, and it's a very fun, hilarious little skit. That's pretty much what this movie is. It's a series of little skits that string together to make the whole story. And this one is really charming. There's another little imaginary sequence where he writes the perfect paper and he hands it into his teacher, and his teacher gives him an A+++, and the whole his entire class is cheering him on and so excited for him that he wrote this perfect paper. And the paper is about what he wants for Christmas, and he wants the Red Ryder BB gun. But then when he gets his paper back, in actuality, he only got a C+, and the teacher wrote at the bottom of the paper, you'll shoot your eye out. And that's kind of this running joke throughout the movie, that whenever he brings up wanting this gun, everyone tells him that he'll shoot his eye out. So when he first brings it up at the very beginning, his mother's like, no, you'll shoot your eye out. I don't want anybody shooting their eye out. It's too dangerous. You can't have a BB gun. And then when he brings it up to the teacher, he has this note at the bottom of his paper saying, P.S. you'll shoot your eye out. And he immediately thinks that the teacher is in cahoots with his mother, and that they're conspiring against him to not get his BB gun because they both said the exact same thing. And then there's another instance of you'll shoot your eye out that I will talk about later and separately, because it's an entire sequence unto itself, and I really like that part of the movie, and it's later down in my notes, so I'll talk about it then. What I will talk about now, though, is probably the most iconic piece of imagery to come out of this movie, and that is the leg lamp. If you have not seen the leg lamp, if you've seen it, you probably know what it is, but if you haven't seen the movie, you might not know exactly what it's from. But the leg lamp is from this movie, and so Ralphie's father, he won this lamp in a newspaper contest that he played. It was some kind of puzzle that he figured out, and he won this award. And he brings it out, and it's this lamp with it, and the stem of the lamp is this woman's leg with fishnet stockings, and then the lampshade on top, and the whole thing lights up. And it's just this, it's this ridiculous, gaudy, unfortunate looking lamp, but the dad loves it, and Ralphie is kind of interested in it too. Every time he's near it, he like puts his hand on the leg and then is like sliding his hand up the leg, and it's a little unnerving, but it's mostly funny at the same time. And the mom is just horrified that this lamp is in her house and she doesn't want it. She wants it out. She thinks it's no good. And so there's this war between both of Ralphie's parents about this lamp, and it goes on for a chunk of the movie, and I find it hilarious. Every time the mom is around, she'll turn the leg off and the dad will turn it back on, and he's just so proud of the major award that he has won. But at the same time, it's just this awful thing. So we get to a point eventually in the movie where the lamp is broken, and the dad thinks that the mom did it on purpose, and that causes like a bigger rift. But then by the end of the movie, they've patched things up and everything is fine because the magic of Christmas has brought them back together, and it is beautiful. But the leg lamp itself, it's just an iconic piece of imagery. I like it a lot. My dad actually has a miniaturized version of the leg lamp that we bought him for Christmas. I think it was a couple of years ago that we bought this for him, and he's got it down there and he clicks it on and off, and it's not as big as the one in the movie, but it's still great to look at. And you look at it and you say like, oh yeah, A Christmas Story. That's a good movie. But the leg lamp isn't the only thing that is really iconic in this movie. We get another sequence where two of Ralphie's friends are daring each other. Like, they're having an argument about if you stick your tongue to a frozen pole, if it'll stick or not. And so his one friend triple dog dares him, and the triple dog dare is just the biggest deal, and so he has to do it because he was triple dog dared, and he sticks his tongue, and sure enough it sticks. And then the bell rings for school, so everyone goes back inside, but they leave their friend stuck to the pole, and they just have to come and get him out. And part of why this scene is so good is because of the narration. Now, normally I don't enjoy narration in movies a ton because I would rather be shown something instead of told something. But in the case of this particular film, the way the narration is used is purely for comedic purposes as opposed to really just conveying information. And I really, really like it. The way he delivers the lines. Like, this is definitely someone who works in radio and knows exactly how to say things and when. His comedic timing is excellent. And so when he's saying all these different things, it's really funny and also informative at the same time. So the narration in this movie is one of the few exceptions where I'm okay with it. Throughout the film, I can think of lots of movies right off the top of my head that use narration way too much and in not a very good way at all. And it's just no good, and I wish it wasn't there. But A Christmas Story is the exception. I like its narration a lot, especially during this triple dog dare sequence. It's just so funny. Also, I guess I really like the narration during the leg lamp stuff as well. The way he describes the lamp, I find really, really funny. I don't want to just recite all the lines of the film, though. I don't want to do that. You should just watch it. If you haven't seen it, you should just watch it. It's good stuff. The triple dog dare is really good. My wife's favorite part of this movie is right near the beginning, and it's while Ralphie and Randy are getting ready for school, and it's this whole production of getting all their stuff on, and Randy is wearing his big snowsuit, and his mom is wrapping a scarf around his head again and again and again, so his mouth is covered, but he's whining about something, and he's whining and whining and whining, and so the mom has to unwind the scarf so that she can hear what he's saying, and she unwinds and she's like, "What's the matter?" And he goes, "I can't put my arms down." And sure enough, his arms are sticking out because his suit is so puffy that he can't put down his arms to his side. So she pushes his arms down, and then they spring back up out to the side, pushes them down, and she just looks at him and she says, "You can put your arms down when you get to school." And she rewraps his head with this scarf around him, and he's whining, but it muffles him so that he has to be quiet. He's kind of a whiny kid. I don't like Randy that much. And there's one part of the film especially where he refuses to eat, and the mom has to trick him into eating his food by pretending he's a pig, and he shoves his face into the food, and it's pretty gross to watch. I don't really like that sequence that much. Yeah, like I said, Randy is one of the only weak points that I have of this movie. The other weak point, while it's on my mind, I would say there's a bully who I don't think goes to school, but there's this bully kid, Scott Fargus is his name, and he has this little henchman as well, and they terrorize Ralphie and his friends, and he's just there. There's not really much to him as a character. Like, he's just a bully who happens to be there, and he pushes them in the snow, or he throws a snowball at them. And so I don't really like that as much. However, we do get to a point where Ralphie is really frustrated by not doing a very good job of convincing people to get him his Red Ryder BB gun. And so when the bully throws a snowball at him and it gets like in his glasses and really like it's a bad snowball throw. Like, you can see like it probably did not feel very nice at all. That Ralphie snaps and he just attacks this bully and is pounding him in the face and is stringing off this string of verbal bad words. But he's not really swearing. It's just like random nonsense. It's like listening to Yosemite Sam curse in Looney Tunes. And that's one thing I respect about this movie, is that there's a lot of swearing going on, but it's not really actual swear words. Especially when it comes to Ralphie's dad, because he's supposed to be this foul-mouthed character, and you see him just like rocking, and he's just like making these sounds that aren't words, but you're supposed to interpret them as being swear words. And so that's what Ralphie's doing as he's beating on this kid, and this poor kid has a bloody nose, but really he deserved it because he's a bully. And so after that, they don't have to deal with the bully anymore, which is good because I don't really like that aspect of the movie. But talking about swearing leads me into another part of the movie that I do like, where they're going out to buy a Christmas tree, and the dad really likes to haggle, so he haggles out a good deal for the Christmas tree, and on their way home, they get a flat tire. Now, the dad really likes to pretend that he's in the Indianapolis Speedway in the pits changing tires, and he wants to be able to change the tire in 4 minutes or less, so he runs outside to go change the tire, and the mom recommends that Ralphie goes to help him. So Ralphie is all excited. He's never been asked to help his dad with anything before. He runs outside, and he's helping his dad, and he's holding the hubcap with the bolts in it, and then his arm gets accidentally knocked, and the bolts go flying into the darkness, and they get lost in the snow, and Ralphie goes, "Oh, fudge." But then the narration comes in, and he says, like, "Well, I didn't say fudge. I said the word to end all curse words." And the dad gets all offended. He's like, "What did you say?" And then he kicks Ralphie back into the car. And then when the dad gets back into the car after changing the tire, he whispers to his mom, and the mom just has this violent, crazy reaction to what happened and the word that her son used. And as punishment, they put soap in Ralphie's mouth when they get home, and they talk to him about where he heard that word. And in his mind, in the narration, he's saying, "Well, I heard that word probably about 10 times a day from my dad, but I didn't want to say that." So he blames one of his friends. And so Ralphie's mom calls his friend's mom, and when the friend's mom finds out what happened, even though it didn't actually happen, you can hear her beating her son on the other line. And it's also played for comedic purposes, so I think it's very funny. Some people might find it a little more tragic, but I find it very humorous that this poor kid is just getting what he doesn't deserve, really, because of Ralphie's lie. And it's more of a dark, serious humor. I acknowledge that, but I think it's funny. But then Ralphie having the soap in his mouth leads us into another one of his little daydreams, and he is thinking about, oh, well, what if when I'm grown up I go blind, and it's all my parents' fault because they put soap in my mouth, and I'm blind because of soap poisoning. So he imagines the scenario where he's come home to visit his family, and they're like, "No, you're blind. Whatever happened?" And he tells them that it was soap poisoning, and they're so distraught, and Ralphie has a big smile on his face because he's finally getting revenge on his parents for their cruel punishments towards him, and he's just really, really getting a kick out of his parents' misery because now it's time for payback. It really is good stuff. I'm always laughing throughout this movie. It's really funny. There's one segment that's closer to the end that I want to talk about separately right now. Here we go. It's when Ralphie is at an all-time low and nobody is gonna get him his Red Ryder BB gun, and he's really sad about it. And then he has an idea. It sparks in his mind, and he is going to achieve his goal because he's going right to the head honcho. He's gonna go to Santa and ask him for the Red Ryder BB gun. And so him and Randy, they go to the department store while his parents are shopping, and they wait in line for Santa. And while they're in line for Santa, it's a little strange because there's this boy in front of them in line who's really weird. He's just like, I like Santa. But then at the same time, there's Wizard of Oz characters running around, and there's the Wicked Witch of the West and Dorothy, and some of the flying monkeys are running around, Tin Man, Scarecrow, and all that. And this little boy's like, I like the Wizard of Oz. I like the Scarecrow. So I think that this movie takes place in like 1940 or 1941. It's generally around the time shortly after The Wizard of Oz came out, because I think Wizard of Oz came out in 1939, if I remember correctly. Why don't I look that up too? Here, let's check quickly. The Wizard of Oz, 1939. Hey, I'm on a roll today. Good for me for remembering all these movie years. But anyway, they're waiting in line for Santa, and the weird kid gets it there first, and he sits on Santa's lap, and he just screams at the top of his lungs. He's just scared of Santa. And this Santa is very aggressive, and so are his elves. They just pick up the kids, they shove them in the lap, and Santa's yelling ho 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 in the face of these kids, so understandably they're terrified and traumatized of what's going on. And these elves are not helpful. And one thing that I've always liked about this is that after you see Santa, there's a big slide that goes down. So they put you on the slide and you go back down because Santa's like up high on this throne type thing. So you walk up the stairs, you see Santa, you tell him what you want, and then you go down the slide. But this Santa is just, he's not a very good Santa. And so when Randy goes on his lap, he also screams in terror because he's afraid of everything. But then it's Ralphie's turn. He gets to sit on Santa's lap and he gets to tell him what he wants for Christmas. And when he gets in his lap, he blanks. His mind is frozen. He can't remember what he wants for Christmas. So Santa says, oh, maybe you would like a football for Christmas. And Ralphie just nods his head. Yeah. They pick him up and they put him down the slide, but then he realizes the mistake that he's made and he stops himself in the slide and he turns around and he climbs back up the slide and he shouts at Santa, no, I want a Red Ryder BB gun, and with pump action, whatever. He gives the whole list, the big name of this gun that he wants, and then he smiles at Santa. And Santa looks down at him and he says, you'll shoot your eye out, kid. Ho, ho, ho. And as he says the last ho, he places his boot on Ralphie's forehead and pushes him back down the slide with his boot. And Ralphie just screams, no! As he goes back down the slide, and then he is all depressed. And he is very sad that he's not going to get his Red Ryder BB gun. And Christmas morning hits, and they get their gifts, and they open everything, and in classic Christmas fashion, there's a horrible gift from a distant aunt where Ralphie gets like this pink bunny costume outfit that's not very good, and they make him put it on, and it's very funny. But Christmas is over, and there's no Red Ryder BB gun, and he's very sad about it. But then his dad says like, hey, what's that behind the desk? You better go check it out. And sure enough, there's one gift that has yet to be unwrapped, and it's the Red Ryder BB gun. And he's so happy. He's like, oh, Mom, can I go outside? Can I shoot it? And he loads up the gun, and he's so excited. He puts his boots on, he goes outside, and he aims for his target. He has his target set up, and he's ready to go, and he's about to shoot his very first shot of this gun, and he fires. Now, I notice this every single time, but he places his target on like a tin sign. So it's a metal that he's shooting this metal. And he shoots his target, and the bullet ricochets back, and it hits him in the face. It knocks his glasses go flying, and he falls down. And the first thing that the narrator says, he goes, oh no, I've shot my eye out. And just all of these things throughout the whole movie saying, you'll shoot your eye out, you'll shoot your eye out, you'll shoot your eye out. It comes full circle in this moment where, and he didn't really shoot his eye out. He shot himself on the cheek, like right on his cheekbone, that caused his glasses to go flying. And he's distraught because his mother was right the entire time, but he came up with a lie that an icicle fell and hit him instead of being shot in the face, and he gets away with it. So he doesn't have his gun taken away. It's very nice. And then they're going to have their Christmas dinner. But some dogs break into the house and they take the Christmas turkey and they destroy the kitchen, and it's all very sad. So they end up going to a Chinese food restaurant where they eat a duck. I think it's a duck or a goose. It's something with a long skinny neck, but they bring it to them fully cooked with the head still on. And they're like, oh, like we can't really eat this because it's smiling at us. And the owner of the Chinese food restaurant brings out this cleaver and hacks off the head of the Christmas duck or goose or whatever it is. I think it's a duck. I don't remember though. And it turns out to have been a Merry Christmas after all, because he got his Red Ryder BB gun. I think that's pretty much it for my notes here. What did I talk about? I talked about his daydreams, the leg lamp, triple dog dare, can't put my arms down, the bunny costume, the bully, you'll shoot your eye out, and of course getting the Red Ryder BB gun for Christmas. So I think that's pretty much it that I'm going to say about this movie. It is hilarious, it is heartfelt, it is charming, it is an excellent Christmas movie to sit down and watch. It's very lighthearted, so you don't have to worry about having your heart ripped out like if you're sitting down to watch a Hallmark Christmas movie or anything like that. It's just a good time. So I'm going to recommend you guys watch A Christmas Story this season, but I also want to ask you guys, what is your favorite Christmas movie? I would love for you to let me know. You can reach out to me on social media. You can find me on Twitter at PottleNathan. You can find the show on Instagram at MoviesAreAwesomePodcast, and you can email the show at moviesareawesomepod@gmail.com. All that information is in the show notes below. If you haven't done so, please feel free to subscribe to the show. You can do that on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and a whole bunch of other places. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I'm sorry that I didn't have one last week. I should have one next week because I'm getting close to the end of all my overtime at work. So I'm going to be able to do weekly episodes regularly again. So stay tuned for those. And as always, if you have nothing else to do, go watch more movies.